G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Trewin. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Brad Riley from Infostatus, based in Melbourne, Australia. Thanks for your time today, Brad.
Thanks, Troy.
Let's start with how we know each other. Sharon Crombie, the founder of Micro Chili, an awesome accounting and bookkeeping service in Melbourne, who I had on the episode 225 about 2 years ago now, mid-22, introduced us. Thought you'd be a great guest.
Sharon's awesome. She's also my bookkeeper and a terrific friend and great partner.
Yes, and I think, because I catch up with her every couple of weeks for a bit of coaching, I think I should actually do a word count. I think she swears more than me.
She's very elaborate.
Yeah. Well, tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Yeah, sure. So Infostatus is a IT advisory business. Effectively, we have a range of services, managed services for cloud, journey to the cloud, migrating into cloud, software engineering, and data and AI. So a big part of my personal background is data and AI, but it is one of the business units that we focus on.
Great. So maybe give some examples. Are there specific industries you work with, geographic areas, things like that?
Yeah, so we work a lot with manufacturing. So manufacturing, and then from the public sector perspective, we do healthcare, education, and other small to medium businesses. Typically, businesses around 100 mil cap, something like that. So sort of at the higher end of the small to medium business range. Yeah.
So you said $500,000 in top line minimum?
100 mil cap generally.
Wow. Okay. Great.
Yeah. For those businesses.
Yeah, right. Okay. And how did you start out?
Started off as a consultant, an IT consultant myself. It was great to get involved with some of those bigger projects, and I enjoyed the nature of that work, but I sort of wanted to own more of those outcomes. So as a consultant, I guess I could only influence so much of that journey, and ultimately always had in the back of my mind that I'd like to put together a team and potentially solve bigger problems.
And what year did you start out and how old were you?
So I started, uni, graduated from uni in 2000, and then worked my way as a consultant in the early 2000s, incorporated this business in 2013, but really have only had a focus on it as a business since 2022.
Right.
So it's really been a vehicle for my own professional services, but then it's moved into what I would consider to be a true business in the last few years.
So you're pretty much you just yourself until the last 3 or 4 years, and you started piling on the team members?
That's right. So myself up until about 2021, 22, and then currently we've got 15 team members.
Yep.
And located both in Australia and also in Vietnam.
Yeah.
We've got an entity in Vietnam as well.
Right. And so how old were you 11 years ago when you started out?
So I was about 34-ish.
Yep.
Something like that.
Fantastic. And you've said you started one FTE, now at 15. Any other key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over those 11 years?
So the 11 years probably reflect a professional services income, but the last 3 years we've seen significant growth. So we've had 100% revenue growth year on year since 2022. So we're definitely in a growth period, and at the moment we've made a significant investment in our team and looking to get the benefit of that throughout this financial year and next.
Fantastic. That's wonderful growth. Well done.
Thank you.
When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Gee, that's a tough question. I think, generally speaking, when I felt confident in introducing team members that brought a skill set that really would assist our customers in a way that I couldn't do it personally. So I think, when early days of the business, I was very much hands-on in front of customers most of the time, and to be able to hand those customers that I had a real relationship with, hand their duty of care over to someone else that I'd employed and had confidence and had worked through bringing them on board into the company was probably something that I was very proud of. And probably reflected a bit more maturity in our processes that didn't exist, prior to the last few years. So that for me was probably a moment where I stood aside and thought, yep, we've done something well.
What does success look like to you?
I think, I mean, it boils down to solving bigger problems for me. So I think success is really being able to go on the journey with our customers, really understand what they're trying to achieve in their own businesses. Something that I can do as an owner of a business rather than just a participant in the process is stand side by side with our clients and really work towards an outcome. So for me, being able to solve bigger problems, being able to make a real top line difference to those individual customers, and being able to just push the dial in the right way after understanding what that means for them. So really, customer success is really something that defines our own success as a business.
Now, a part of fast growth, which you've had in the last 3 years, is obviously the people side, which we'll get to in a minute. But the other side, I call the growth seesaw, the other end, the other plank, you've got to run up and down, back and forth. One's people, the other one's marketing. Very important. So, what's the number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
Understanding your total addressable market and really understanding the personas that you're selling to. I think it's something that I didn't invest a lot of time in early on in the process, and it really showed. So I think really getting to the core of what your business offers and who that might influence or impact in a positive way is really key. So spending that time developing those key personas, you know, against popular conventional wisdom, we do a lot of different things. I would probably suggest, from a marketing perspective, trying to do a couple of things really, really well. We've really taken the mantle of an advisory service that would fill, the CTO or CIO kind of role within an organization. And in that respect, we do a lot of different things. So marketing's always been a challenge because we need to market a number of different products and services. But I would suggest, niching down and really focusing on one or two key services.
So early on, would you say you made the mistake I certainly made, trying, being a jack of all trades, master of none, trying to do everything for everyone?
Absolutely.
You got that coffee mug?
Absolutely. I've got the coffee mug, and I think, the one thing I will say is that through lean times, having different hooks in different service lines can actually help to buoy up the business, especially as a small business where things change very quickly. So I absolutely agree. You probably shouldn't do that, but for us, I don't know whether it's serendipity or good luck or whatever it might be, but it's been a positive experience to have different options to fall back on.
And when did you start to make that change to niche down and define your perfect avatar?
I think when we started to align with some core technology partners, so we started to align with the likes of AWS and Databricks and other organizations of that nature, and these are organizations that have spent a lot of money and time developing sales systems that target specific audiences, and we learnt a lot from that experience of partnering closely with them. So I think that really brought it to bear. It was something that we needed to turn our attention to.
And did you use a marketing consultant or agency to help you with that work to get the positioning and the messaging right?
We have. So we've done that a couple of times to varying levels of success. I think the work that we've done to get the profiling right on our customers has been excellent. I think some of the campaigns and work we've done on outbound marketing has probably been not as successful, but we've adjusted that and we tend to have better success now.
Yep. Have you read any of April Dunford's books?
No, I haven't.
I'll send them through to you. They're really good. First one's called Obviously Awesome, which is all about positioning. The Bible in Positioning was written in the early 80s by Elle Rise and Jack Trout.
Okay.
Use that title of her book, but that's a great book to learn the concepts around positioning. But then her book, I don't know, 3 years, probably 3 or 4 years ago, she released, which takes you through her framework. And she is the world's leading expert in positioning for B2B tech companies. So it's perfect for you guys.
Fantastic.
And the second book she wrote is called Sales Pitch. I couldn't believe no one had that title in a book.
Okay.
And that's also excellent as well. I'll shoot you through those two resources. You may have nailed it, but it might be just another good angle to look at.
Absolutely. Always open to learning, Troy. Thanks. That's great.
And I know you use Net Promoter Score, and I'm a big fan of it. Tell the audience what your number is.
Yeah, so we use a Net Promoter Score. It's a variant of an AWS customer satisfaction score. So that's on a scale of 1 to 10. I know Net Promoter's slightly different, but we run at a 9 when it comes to that level of
Hmm.
scrutiny from our customers.
Yep. So it's
I'm very
nine
proud
out of
of that.
10. It's not a positive nine, which is the net promoter score is calculated differently.
Correct.
Yep. That's
Correct.
great. 9 out of 10. Fantastic. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
How did you fund the business?
Entirely self-funded. So I think a bit of luck early days, winning a few projects off the back of my own professional services engagements and being able to expand on those, having a foothold already established with those customers. So that was a bit of luck, but I think by the same token, we sort of capitalized that and started to build out the teams around that. So from an investment perspective, we are wholly owned. We don't have any debt, and we're certainly proud of that. But it is something that we're evaluating as we look to the next level of scaling.
Have you looked at an ESOP, employee share ownership plan?
We run an ESOP currently for our execs, and yeah, it's something that we're currently looking at for running for rest of the rank and file team as well.
Mm. I did a cast probably 4 years ago with Craig West from Succession Plus, one of the leaders in Australia in ESOPs, and he's got a lot of international studies and data that shows from memory, productivity can increase between 7 and 23%, and importantly, retention can almost double from 5.1 years to nearly 10. So ESOPs are very well worth looking into. Have you read the book by Jack Stack called The Great Game of Business?
No, no, I haven't.
I shall send
Another
you
good
that one
tip.
as well.
Thanks, Troy.
Oh,
Fantastic.
the early 90s, I think he released that book in 1983. I think they bought a manufacturing business that was closing down. They bought it for, oh, geez, $9 million. They only had 100 grand. Anyway, got back then, they got the rest from the bank. It was quite an amazing story. And that's one of the benefits of doing this podcast is I find great books I love. So there's probably 3 or 4 in my top 10 now that are only found in the last 4.5 years of doing this podcast from guests. And that's one of those books. It's an awesome book. They talk about their bonus structure they use in a profit share, a heap of other management styles and techniques as well. But importantly also is that he talks a lot about their ESOP and why that was important for the massive value growth. So I think you'd enjoy that book as well, that story.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And absolutely, it's one of those things with a small business that you just need to encourage to be as invested as you are.
Yep.
And so it's one of those tools to really drive that engagement, I think.
If you were to start to have plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Absolutely. And I think the sooner the better, really. It's I guess the balance is, yes, we are self-funded and we don't have debt, but at the same time, the growth is really limited by that at times as well. So I think if I had significant amounts of funding, I think we would have positioned ourselves in a different way and be growing at a faster rate.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Yeah, so I think for me, a lot of the stress comes from managing people. So I think one of the things when you take on being a small business owner is people's careers and their livelihood. And I think there's been a few occasions throughout the journey of this business where we've been very lean, and watching those numbers tick away and watching the money drop into the bank account and be in a position to pay people is stressful, and to the point where we've made the decision to let people go at different times, which has been very difficult and a situation I'd prefer to avoid, but it is unavoidable at times. So that's definitely the most stressful part of the business from my perspective.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Definitely sales. So I don't come from a sales background. I come from a technical background. So that part of the business for me has been a learning journey and still is. And I find it's something that I need to evaluate and really look for external guidance and help on. I've had some great people around me from time to time share ideas, but I think synthesizing those ideas and working them into our business and developing processes around them has been really key to get where we are at the moment.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
Letting people go. I think back to that point. I think it's fast growth generally means that you're making different bets at different times around outcomes, and sometimes we get those wrong. I think I own that process, and that's also part of the highlight for me. Really, is making those decisions, but at times we get them wrong, and that's a difficult part about fast growth is having the right people at the right time, doing the right things in the business, and sometimes that balance gets skewed in the wrong direction.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
Decision making. So owning that journey, I think, I think I probably come from a background of people pleasing behavior, and something that I've had to work on. But having the confidence to make decisions and double down on those decisions along the way is definitely why I do it and come to work every day. Because when they come off, it's a great I guess reinforcement to my own belief systems and values.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Probably again circling back to that people pleasing thing, but really trusting my own intuition and um, I guess becoming okay with making hard decisions, and it's just backing myself in. I think that's been a key part of the journey for me.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Learning, inquisitiveness, and probably above all, perseverance. Sorry, you asked for one, but
Yeah.
if it was one, it would be perseverance.
Yep.
Um, Above all else, I think just the ability to be able to understand that nothing is absolute, and we need to work in that grey area and feel relatively comfortable with it. So I think perseverance is the major one for me.
Totally agree on the learning front. I think that's something that I see a lot of small business owners don't even think about or invest in. Personally, I do over 10 hours a week of PD or professional development on 1.5 speed, audiobooks, podcasts, etc. when driving around or the dog park. And it's just gets your mind thinking in different ways and you pick up heaps of tips. So I'm really surprised most business owners that I come across don't do any learning.
Yeah, I don't know, Troy. Maybe that comes down to sort of my technical background, where it's an innate part of what I probably did from a skill set perspective. But the world changes, and so do our partners and our business environments all the time. So it is key to keep refreshing that and sort of moving forward on that.
Are you struggling to find time to work on your business? Or is your health and relationships out of balance? Lost confidence, or are your weeks filled with fear? Our free 10-day Transform Your Performance online course shows you how to unlock at least 5 hours a week. We start with the secret to guaranteed success, and with over 100 lessons and free tools, you will become more focused, productive, and feel more in control of your business, health, and relationships. GrowSmallBusiness.com. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, so I think probably if I could start with the mistakes, probably moving a little bit too quickly, becoming impatient, and really pushing on hiring for sort of probably an ideal outcome rather than probably the real situation. So I think we've the frustrating part about that is we've always hired great people. So everyone through this business has been fantastic, and to have to let them go it comes at, is a double-edged sword, because it really it does cut both ways. It's very difficult to let great people leave the business, and that's ultimately our business is about people. So that losing assets like that is always a problem. The highlights probably have been surrounding myself with people that can really push the dial in the right direction in areas that I struggle with. And I'm of a belief that I have mentors, I have coaches around me informally, but I feel that everyone can act in that capacity in some way. We can always learn from each other. So I think having all levels of team members that can provide some sort of learning in my day to day has been a real highlight.
So those you've had to let go wasn't due to performance. It was more around work dropped away or sales you were expecting the pipeline didn't fall when they needed to.
Yeah, correct. So we've had a lot of really good people come in. We've focused on recruiting at a junior level as well as probably a senior level. So we have a bit of a gap in between at times structurally, but some of the junior people we've had come in are sensational, but just not right for the opportunities that sort of came through. So probably getting the level of skill set and I guess career maturity right as part of that process is been part of the challenge.
It's an oldie, but another goodie. Have you read Managing the Professional Services Firm by David H. Maister?
Yes,
Yeah.
on that I have.
Right. Geez, that would be 15 years ago since I read that, but I thought that was a really good read.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
It being engaged. So I think giving everyone clear line of sight about what we're trying to achieve as an organization, and even down to performance financially. I think letting the team really understand how they push us forward in different ways and what impact that has with customers. So clearly we focus on customer satisfaction, but there's a flip side of that too, where we look at the employee satisfaction across projects as well. So we look at a range of metrics that talk to whether they've enjoyed the experience generally, whether it's helped them from a career development perspective, whether it's helped from an industry perspective. If we get clients in a specific industry, we love to ensure that we do knowledge share around various aspects of that industry. So things like that. It's important for the team to feel fully engaged and across what we're doing as a business.
Hello, audience, how you've handled balance?
I don't know if I've got that right, so maybe I'm not the best person to talk to that. I've got two small children under four, so it is getting the balance right personally and across the business is tricky. I feel it's we have people locally in Australia. We have a team in Vietnam. They work different hours slightly. I tend to be available for both sets of people, and that coupled with personal obligations is challenging. But it's also the part where I get a lot of value from being a business owner because I can sort of suit myself as well to some degree. And some good hires have meant that I've got a lot of backup as well. So I feel comfortable in it, but I'm sure that I don't do it as well as I possibly could.
Now, you've done a lot of technical professional development. What about on the business or manager side of things? How much professional development have you done in those areas?
I would say nothing particularly formal, but it is the area that I focus on the most for my own reading and learning. So it's something that I don't want to just be a manager. I want to be a good manager. And understanding what that means for me personally and my personality, as well as the people around me and my team, is key. And I find that a lot of material that talks to building good working relationships, but also empowering team is very key for me. So I'm always looking for ways to engage with the team and get them to look to the better, to their best selves as well, and bring that to the business. That's something that I focus on personally, but it's something that I try to encourage across the team.
Now, you've said you've had mentors or coaches. Any comments on those for the audience? Any advice or success from that?
Super important, I think. Again, I think there's two parts to that. First is, we don't know what we don't know. So I think that mentors and coaches are, for me personally, the strength has been identifying different areas that need focus. But I think it's also important, and they've encouraged this, is, you have to find your own way through it. So, identifying areas that you need to focus on is only half the battle. I think then understanding how you do that in a sustainable way as an individual is really key. And I've had some great people in and around roles that I've had previously that, whilst not in a formal capacity, have been able to really highlight the things that I've needed to change to make a real difference. So I'm very appreciative of that and super important.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
We don't. So we have a leadership team, which is a function of the execs in the business, and so that functions in that way. But we don't have a formal board or anything like that.
All right, Brad, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Backing yourself to make hard decisions. I think it's for me entirely a mindset thing. So I think the hardest thing is really breaking through some of the limitations that I've had throughout my working career, and perhaps coming into this a little bit later in my 40s. It's probably the thing that I need to challenge the most is my own belief system, and that's something I look at all the time.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Thinking in Bets, Annie Duke. Not quite a business book potentially, but
Is it game
uh,
theory or?
it is game theory, and it's about effectively making decisions when you don't have all the facts.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of analogies to poker. I've worked a lot in gaming throughout my career, but the analogy really is that poker, that you in a tournament, for example, you have many games and you have many hands, and you need to make quality decisions for a very prolonged period of time, and you don't always know what the other people have in their hands. And that differs from chess, for example, where it's very computational, and you can in fact predict where the game is going at different times, and not much is left unknown. But life is a little bit different. So quality decisions and good luck, and not necessarily in that order, make a big difference.
Yeah. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Massive fan of Acquired. So Acquired's a M&A sort of focused podcast where they value a lot of the biggest businesses in the world, and they go through a very in-depth method of analyzing these businesses, and I find it really insightful, and it does bring out a lot of cultural aspects of those particular businesses as well.
Have you read any of John Morillow's books, Built to Sell, The Art of Selling Your Business, and The Automatic Customer?
I have not. No.
Adding that to my list to send.
More for the list. Fantastic.
He's also got an awesome weekly podcast, almost at episode 500, I think. We've had John on our cast twice, one on our Quickfire Friday, one expert, one topic for less than 20 minutes. And then I interviewed John on this format, the main one, about his business journey. And it's just a great resource, not just his books, but the weekly podcast. So I listen to 3 or 4 a week to get through his back catalogue. I've only got about 170 to go. But there is a heavy leaning towards tech companies, some IT, services, but some SaaS, etc. So I think you get a lot of value out of hearing not just the mistakes founders make on exit. Some knock it out of the park, don't make any mistakes on the way out, but others, some legal traps that you can learn, but also the numbers like the EBITDA or the multiple on top line if it's a SaaS product, for example, or subscription business. Really good podcast.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
I mean, it might sound a bit flippant, but I'd say the internet. I mean, I think it's hard to think of one thing, but I think really about we're in a time where we can really take advantage of other people's journeys, and we try to do that. I mentioned before with some of the partners that have spent a lot of money on marketing and selling and all sorts of things, and we can learn a lot from what they do. But I think the same can be said for many different businesses that you might be aspirationally trying to emulate. So I'd say the internet is your biggest friend, and even just in terms of learning, skills, culture, all sorts of different pieces to the puzzle. I think the internet's a great tool.
Finally, my favorite question: what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out 11 years ago?
It's okay. You'll be okay. Yeah, tough times come and go. And I would, if you were to ask me what does a tough time look like, it would look very different now than it would have 11 years ago. So I think, again, just persevere, keep in there, hang in there, and it'll be okay.
Great. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Brad. I really enjoyed our chat. Sure we could talk for a few more hours. Congratulations to you and the team on the growth, going from 1 to 15 now in the last 11 years, but more so in the last 3 or 4 years, you've decided to add team members and ramp the business. So congratulations.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Troy. It's been a pleasure.
We're getting some great iTunes reviews. For those listening, please pop over to your podcast app and leave us a review.